Hello.
Hey,
Hi, everyone. Welcome along to my channel. You know me, I'm John Binnie, and we have special guest Gigi here with us. Hello, Gigi.
it's Gigi actually,
Oh,
half
my
G.
apologies.
No, everyone gets it wrong at first.
Oh, well, welcome, and it's an honor to meet you.
Oh,
Um,
I love thanks for having me.
it's my pleasure, and I'd love to share a bit more with more of your work and more of your adventures and your journey with my subscribers here. And it'd be really lovely to hear a bit about yourself. Maybe we could start a bit about where you are in the world and what your recent journey's been.
Recent journey in what sense?
Well, your creative journey. I'd love to learn more about that.
A creative journey, yeah. Well, where I am in the world, I'm just outside Glastonbury, in Somerset, England. Living in a beautiful community castle with about 15 other people. And it's beautiful. I really am grateful to be around lots of like-minded, like open, creative beings because it just really helps you feel very supported, like when you have other people that you can bounce ideas off. And especially in like the darker months, I really value being around people to kind of keep the energy up because it's so easy in England to like it's to get so dark and cold and you kind of can get quite sad. And I've
Yeah.
definitely found that when I've lived by myself. So yeah, living in a really beautiful community. My creative journey recently, my recent sort of desire for my business and for what I'm doing creatively is I found that I've really found this like comfortable sort of style of my designs that I know that I'm good at and I've developed over several years. And I'm finding myself sort of like slipping back into, oh, I'll just make this kind of design because I know it works really well. So I'm recently trying to just sort of push myself a bit more and try new designs, work with different shaped stones, different materials, and yeah, just make sure that I'm not like stagnating as an artist. I'm just always trying to grow and build and expand as a creator.
Oh, wonderful. You live in a castle. That's so cool.
Yeah,
And it's such a
it's
magical
like
part of the country too. Um,
yeah, it's really nice. Yeah.
and how did you get started on working with jewelry?
So it was about the lockdown, like the first lockdown here in England, and I found that for many years, I mean, I actually trained as a special effects makeup artist at university.
Oh, wow.
So that was yeah, so that was my like initial like this is what I want to do as a career, and I found that to actually do that as a career is quite commercial and soul sucky and didn't really align with me because I just started. While I was at university, I kind of had my first sort of spiritual experience and was moving towards like that kind of path, and it just became more and more apparent to me that that line of career wasn't aligned for me. So and I'm like a very multifaceted artist. Like for many years, I've been creating in so many different ways: painting, drawing, makeup. But there was just something that wasn't like quite hitting the mark for me. I wanted to create in a way that had more meaning for people, like something that was more tangible. Like obviously, like paintings are very beautiful, but you just can't put it on a wall, which
Mm.
is obviously like can be like incredibly powerful. But I just wanted something else. And then I realized, oh, jewelry, people can actually wear it, and it's like art that you wear through your day, and it's like more personal. So I was at this point where I was figuring out what I wanted to make, and it was either going to be macrame or
Mm.
wire wrapping. And it was very interesting, very like synchronistic thing happened where I was at this sort of split in my past, like which way am I going to go? And this wire wrap artist that had been following me on my special effects Instagram account for a few years, she messaged me and was like, "Hey, I love what you do. You really inspire me. And I want to send you a wire wrap pendant as a gift because it does say thank you for being you." It was so sweet. And that kind of felt like it was like at this time where I was deciding, I was like, oh, it has to be wire wrap. This person has just like come in and And so it was almost like the universe saying like, you have to choose 𝕲𝖌𝖎. Yeah, and then that was about 4 years ago. And yeah, that's how I decided.
Oh, it's amazing. And I'd love if you're okay sharing, would you be able to share a bit more about your spiritual experience that you mentioned?
Yeah, so in university, backstory, I've never been one to like, I was very straight edge, like as a teenager. I didn't drink until I was like 19 or something, and just didn't do anything. I was very boring. Yeah, I didn't do anything. And then I started like using cannabis in university, and it helped so much with like my mental health. Because I had a lot of like anxiety, and I was very like seriously depressed. I had like really like major depression for like about 10 years.
Mm.
And it got really dark. That's a whole other story. It was like it kind of felt like who I was, like this mental illness and everything that came with it. It was really heavy, and I didn't think I was gonna actually make it like into my 20s. And then using cannabis like helped so much with alleviating that, and I actually felt like happiness and peace and enjoyment of life again. And then like other plant medicines have been on my radar for a few years, and I'd made friends with these girls in my course who were also interested in plant medicine, specifically like psilocybin. And I just felt like really like a strong call to like uh, experimenting and understanding mushrooms and psilocybin in a totally like I never like at a party or like for fun. It was always like, what is this medicine doing for me?
Mm.
So yeah, I started using mushrooms maybe like the end of my second year of uni, and it just changed my life. I was like, all the classic things like, wow, I'm the universe, I'm God, it's all connected, like all of this, like this sort of basic spiritual stuff, which is like, it's like, oh, I remember. And then that immediately came through in the art I was creating. You can actually like look back on my Instagram, on my makeup Instagram, and
Mm.
like the makeup that I started making after my first experience with mushrooms, it was so different. And you can see how that like creatively, energetically opened me up to like different ways of expressing myself.
Mm.
Yeah, and then for the next like maybe 3 or 4 years, I was like using mushrooms very regularly. Because it was like, because I'd obviously struggled with my mental health so terribly for like a decade. And at the end of that mushroom trip, I was like, wow, I can be happy. Like, this is amazing. I didn't thought I was gonna be happy again.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so that was like my initial kind of step into spirituality.
Wow.
Plummets.
Oh, incredible. Yeah, it's funny. Some of my first experiences, I didn't even know that they were spiritual experiences. But yeah, when I first tried LSD and later mushrooms at university, I remember telling friends about my experiences, and they're like, "It doesn't sound like just what other people say about it. It's like, oh, I could see like the whole universe at once," and they're like, "Are you sure?" Um, and I remember, yeah, looking back, and although it's been decades now since I've taken anything, and about 7 years since I stopped drinking, um, a lot of the same experiences I now see like I had back then. I just didn't know what was happening to me. Um, and yeah, I love that you, like anything, if you set the intention before you do it and you create a safe space, you're able to experience things that you can, you know, help expand yourself with, which is really magical. And also, thank you for sharing your journey of depression. That's a long time, and it must have been a very, difficult period for you. That's a it can grip many of us for quite some time. And well done for both coming out of it, but also, finding a creative path that continues to help you um, to find joy and happiness again in this world, because it's real, right? We can be happy and joyous, and create the world we really want.
Yeah, it's our natural state, and like everything else that we experience is just layers on top of our natural state of joy and love. And we forget, obviously. But that's part of the magic of it, isn't it? It's the forgetting. I need to remember again. And it's like it's all meant to be in that way.
Absolutely. Um, and you mentioned the wire wraps. So how did you get started? Like you mentioned that someone gave you one as a gift. Did you just like start copying that, or how did you start to learn your craft?
Did I copy it? I think I started being really experimental. I ordered a few wires online.
Hmm.
Super beginner, I ordered some really like cheap tacky tools, and I ordered this like you can get like colored wire, which I don't recommend to anyone watching this who wants a wire wrap. Don't get the colored plated wire because it's not good. But I got like blue wire. It's basically like colored with this like plastic on top.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I just got a few different wire sizes. I started like learning on YouTube and copying some YouTube tutorials just to get the basics of like how to weave and how. Well, actually, the very beginning was just sort of trying to wrap stones in a way that they would just like stay, and just very like just really ugly little designs. And yeah, it was just all like experimenting, different wire sizes, different techniques, learning techniques from YouTube. Thank God for YouTube.
Yeah.
And at the time, the partner I had at the time had been wire wrapping like as a hobby for a few years. And so he knew a bit more than I did. So we kind of bounced ideas off each other. And like I'd try something, he's like, oh, that's cool, but what if you do it this way? And the
Mhm.
same for me, like, oh, that's cool, we can do it. And it was this very like creative um idea bouncing kind of thing. So that was really cool. Um, yeah, and it's just literally like after I learned the basics on YouTube and um, experimenting with my ex-partner, it was like just a lot of trial and error and refining. And it took maybe like 2 years before there was like a recognizable style that I developed. So I think the first
Mhm.
2 years was me trying different things, seeing other wire wrapped artists that I really aspired to, and sort of tried to make designs similar to them. Kind of like I remember in A-level art, you'd do these like artist copies where you'd copy an artist painting, and through that
Mhm.
you'd like kind of learn how they did it, and that would inspire your own techniques.
Wow, it's quick, right? It maybe didn't feel like that at the time, but 2 years is so fast to go from having never done it to finding your own style, which is fantastic. Um,
I'm a fast learner, I've been told.
and did you start wearing it yourself? Were you your first customer?
um, yeah, I had this. I think I still have it. This piece of obsidian. I've rewrapped it about 3 times. I wrapped it right at the beginning. I wrapped it again 2 years later. I wrapped it again like a year later. So yeah, I was wearing my own things. I wanted to wear crystals, but
Mhm.
it just feels so much nicer when you're like you've made it yourself. And I think I sold a couple pieces to some friends back in the day. Um, yeah, like a couple of close friends were like, I want to support your business. I want to buy this from you. And I remember selling my first piece for like £20, and she was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not? Like, fuck it."
Um, oh, that's so cool. And how about so forward wind to now on and now that you create a lot more, and I love like your work on your Instagram. It's just it's not just visually how compelling your work is, but there's something about the energy in it. And I'm really intrigued to hear like what's your like your creative process or like your ceremony when you start creating a piece.
Yeah, it's so beautiful that so many people say that to me. I get so much feedback from people saying that they really feel the energy. And that's kind of when I was saying to you about wanting to create art that was had a bit more depth. It's like this tangible thing you can hold. It's like you can feel the energy. And um, yeah, so when I start creating, it's an interesting process because So I guess the first step is choosing the stone, and there's a big part of what I do is almost like I'm not doing it myself. It's like the stone tells me how it wants to be wrapped.
Oh, cool.
Um, Even if I have like a pre-made sort of design, sometimes I'll sketch out designs,
Mm.
especially if it's like a new thing or if it's a custom piece and someone like wants it a particular way. But generally, the stone will just kind of do its own thing. And when I'm creating, I'm kind of, it really feels like I'm just like a channel. Like I've got, I think with any creative medium, it's about learning the skills because it's like this masculine feminine thing. It's like having the masculine as like the structure. So I have the skill set, and the feminine is this like flow of creation. So
Mm.
I'm like the structure, my mind, my hands know the structural way of like putting this thing together. But then whilst it's actually happening, it's like there's a part of me or something else that's weaving into it and creating what it needs to be. Because sometimes I'll make something for someone, and I'm not really thinking about what it's going to look like. I'm just kind of bending the wire, and then it turns out to be like it just feels like the person that's commissioned it. I'm
Yeah.
like, how did I do that?
Wow. I definitely resonate with that, and my music process. I always it took me um really a meditation practice to discover that I could, well, doing a meditation practice in a music studio, and then I realized, hey, I could just do the same thing. I could just like meditate, ask for lyrics from my guides, and then create music from that. And yeah, I love how you describe like just being able to, like, the masculine side of you is just able to do the doing part, and arguably the even more important part is the receiving, the ability to receive and allow it to flow through you. Um, and how about the stones themselves? Like, how do you source them? Do they find you?
Yeah, it's a real mix. I generally will do like the stones that are really popular, like labradorites and moonstones. I'll do like a bulk order because I know that people are gonna want them. But it's like yesterday, because I live near Glastonbury and there's all the crystal shops you could ever want in
Yeah.
Glastonbury. I went into one that my friend works in, and I was just sort of, they've got this beautiful like massive table with all these 20 stones, and they're perfect for wrapping. And some of them were just like, I pick it up, I'm like, yes, this has to be turned into something.
Mhm.
And then at festivals and things like that, when it's so much nicer to feel them in person because I can kind of feel how it wants to be wrapped as I'm picking it up. I'm like, oh, yeah, we'll get it done, don't worry. We'll wrap you up all
Yeah.
nice.
Oh, that's so cool. Um, yeah, I definitely feel that with I try and limit my number of crystals I buy, because, or that people send. Please don't send me any crystals, anyone, because I have so many. But it's so beautiful because it's like they each of them have their own little personalities, and they're sentient, and they just kind of sit there staring at you like, okay,
Yeah.
like what are we doing next? And I'm really interested in when you're doing custom pieces for work for people, and they commission you to do some work. How does that process work?
Yeah, so people will say, hey, I mean, it depends on the person. Oh, I want a choker in this design with this stone, with this material. And I just kind of get as much info as I can of what they want. My favorite kind of commissions is when someone has a lot of artistic freedom for me and they're just like, I love this kind of vibe, just like feel it out and create whatever you feel from the stones that you get. And or they'll give me some information about them and who they are as a person. Or often I get commissions for people's like wives and girlfriends. So they tell me a bit about their partner.
Mhm.
And then that combined with the artistic freedom means that I always create better when I have a lot of freedom because I can really feel intuitively what is meant to be created. Whereas some people have a bit more rigid of an idea, and I tend to be less satisfied with the outcome, even though everyone's always happy with what I make for them. I feel that the more room for there is for the feminine, for the flow and the creativity, the
Yeah.
more inspired I am by the final result. But yeah, when someone ask me permission. They're just like, I'm like, give me as much information as you can, and then let me do my thing.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. I do when I do I call it quantum psychic readings and clearings for people. Um, the minimum that they'll give me is maybe like a couple of sentences. Like they'll just say, "Oh, I'm interested in my life purpose," and maybe they'll like some energy clearing as well. And if it's just a recorded version, they'll just send me maybe a photo of themselves, and that's all I've got. and, and then and it's funny because I love that the most because you just sit there and I'd set up a safe space and talk with their spirit guides, and especially in the first few minutes once I get into it, it just feels so expansive. Like there's no other human there at the same time to ask questions or um, to um, to in any way there's no interaction to constrain you. And yeah, I love that when you're going through a journey like that, it's like you're fully open to receive. I love the in person and one to one sessions too, but I also love like as you say, like having real freedom in the creative process. Um, and how about when you're doing commissions for people as you're working? You mentioned like this channeling process that you're receiving and creating like in real time. Do you have like any ceremony or like a safe, do you have like a place where you work or before you set up and start that work?
Yeah, I don't have a ceremony for the creation process, but I feel like the kind of space I need to create in is almost like a ceremony, like upon my music. I generally my creative days sort of look like, I mean, my castle room with lots of candles and incense and music, and then I just creating a vibe that in which I can really feel my own energy, because I struggle a lot to create on like in public spaces because there's so much other energy floating around. So I
Mhm.
guess really the key for me to create most abundantly is to be in a space where I can really feel my own energy and how it wants to move.
Yeah.
So whatever I need to do to get that. And sometimes I put on like a podcast whilst I'm creating, to keep my mind busy, because my hands know what they're doing and I'm just sort of weaving away. Um, but yeah, creating like a really fluid, open, energetic space really helps me to, yeah, create most freely.
All right. I love that. I didn't realize that I need when I'm creating like a really empty space. You may notice this is I'd only just set this up as like my office when there's daylight outside, and then I have a studio downstairs, which is also just really empty, and it just has like either my music, I'm either doing music or my psychic work, and yeah, I think it's fascinating that I also find it hard to do, or much harder to do in group situations or in public, because I think it can be distractive for the human aspects of us. They're like, oh, there goes someone else with their shift in energy, and you're like, oh no, I'm trying to focus. I'm trying to focus on my creative journey. Um, and how long does one of your pieces take to create?
I get asked that so much, and it varies. It varies. Like I have my mini pendants. You see on my website, they're just like little ones.
Mhm.
And I mean, thing is, when I talk about how long it takes to create, I made a reel about this recently, actually, how I could say like, oh, that takes like 2, 3 hours, or whatever, but actually, like, if I tried to make that 3 years ago, it would have taken me a day, because I've gotten so fast. Like when I'm weaving, I'm like going so fast, like weaving the wire together, because my muscle memory is like so in there.
Mhm.
So I work very quickly, which I really enjoy. The smaller pieces can take maybe like an hour or two. And then the biggest pieces I make, like really big, like statement chokers with big stones, can take up to 9 or 10 hours, like total, including the polishing and finishing process.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really depends on the design and the material. Like sometimes if someone asks me to work with a tougher material, such as gold bonded, because to use gold wire, it needs to be bonded to like a to a brass core, and
Mm.
brass is really hard to work with, so those will take a bit more time to bend the wires. But generally I use copper and silver, so yeah, that's much faster to work with.
That's really fast. I don't know anything about these processes, but it is to me. I was like, I thought you were going to say 2 or 3 weeks. That is incredible. And the I had a client this week. I was doing an in-person session. I call it like a psychic reflexology. So I was doing foot massage. I was doing a psychic reading at the same time, and then at the end, as they're lying down on the massage reflexology bed, I was doing like an energy scan over their body, starting at the crown chakra and coming over the third eye. And as it came over their third eye, what I could see, I can only describe it as like um, under their, it's almost like under their skin was this crown, almost like a tiara, and it had like a crystal on the front, and I was like, what? It's like what is this? So I was asking their guides, and they said, oh, it's currently they're using it to just help hold back their third eye when they're ready to fully open it. I think they're starting to ready to start opening it now. So we went through kind of, it was almost like a soul gift, and they started taking this off, their little crown off, and then they started uh, beginning to open their eye, and they were seeing a lot of colors, and they were like, wow, it's like I've never experienced this before. And then they said, could I like could I like buy something like this? Can you get these, and what crystal would I use? It's like I don't have that answer, but I know someone that might be able to help. um and yeah, and it's also like a general question as well, like do you have recommendations for anything that help people with their third eyes, or any other parts, any other chakras or parts of their body?
um, well, yeah, I mean, each stone obviously resonates with a different energy center depending on the energy of the stone. For third eye chakras, obviously, like the crown's great because the crystal can just sit on your third eye center.
Mhm.
Um, it's quite funny. It like occurred to me as I was making them. Oh, wow, tiaras are like kind of meant for this, right? Like it's called a crown for a reason, and
Mhm.
it felt so obvious. Like, oh wow, yeah, like you get a stone sitting right there, and it means that yeah, that can resonate with that center. Yeah, there are lots of different stones. Obviously, I can't list every single one for every energy center. The classic ones is like amethyst for the third eye.
Mhm.
Lapis is also great to wear in this area because it resonates with the third eye and the throat.
Okay.
Um, I think amethyst is just my favorite for the third eye because it's just like really, it's very ethereal and spiritually connective for this like area of the energy field, and really feels there's a serenity with amethyst that I feel is necessary in the energy body to be able to connect with the third eye center. Because
Mhm.
if there's too much fire or there's too much erraticness, then you get issues. So amethyst is just my favorite for the third eye.
Oh,
Bit
that's
biased, I
wonderful.
love purple.
Yeah, I did ask that client's guides, and yeah, they did say they said amethyst, and then they said um rose quartz, and I was like, really? It's like, because I always wear one over my heart, and they said, well, you can try different ones, but certainly um amethyst, for especially for like third eye headaches. I sometimes get those, um
Mm.
and yeah, I think that's wonderful advice. Um, and other, so when someone's commissioning like some custom work from you, do you often like do you choose the stones based on the energy center that the jewelry sat over?
Well, generally people will have an idea of the stone that they want.
Okay.
There are a few cases where people just say, "Oh, just choose the stone for me," and in that case, I will kind of talk to them a bit and feel into maybe what they need. But majority of the time, people will say, "I want turquoise," or "I want whatever it is." Um, which makes it a bit easier for me because I just know what I'm doing.
That's right. Yeah. You have something to work from. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And for I was gonna ask, you went through a career change earlier in your life than I did. I only changed my career last year. Um, but I was interested in, first of all, like what advice you'd have for people watching this at any age of life. Um, like when that moment comes to potentially follow your dreams, like how do you go about that? Like how do you go about like changing from one path to another?
Yeah, I love this question. Thank you. This is like such a present topic in my life. Um, I mean, so when you say how do you go about that, do you mean how do you go about it once you've realized that you want to do it? Or
Or
like,
yeah, both. Or if you have advice about the kind of the pre decision or pre jump from one path to the other.
yeah, so I mean, the first step is always try and be as connected to yourself as possible because this idea of having a dharma in like Hinduism and this idea of being heart-led, having a strong connection to yourself, whether that be through meditation. I mean, obviously that's the best one, like, just like connect to what is really going on a non-physical level. Feeling like having good heart connection, because in my experience, the heart is like this soul compass, like it just knows like which way you're meant to go, and having that connection to your heart. And I guess like the other, I mean, obviously trying to be as connected to yourself as possible is kind of what we're all trying to do, right? But
Yeah.
knowing yourself and feeling your inner compass and trying as best as possible to not be led by your mind, because especially nowadays with social media and the internet, it's so easy to be led astray by other people's ideas. And I've definitely struggled with that in the past, kind of seeing other people and thinking, oh, maybe I should be doing that. And this would create so much confusion because it's all in your mind thinking all these ideas. But if you want to really find like contentment and happiness in the decisions you're making, it needs to come from you, and it needs to come from a place of, this is what like sets my heart alight. This is what makes me feel expansive and aligned and really feels like something that I'm passionate about and I can keep doing. Because you don't want to like change paths and find, oh, I've just done this because someone told me to, and I actually don't like this at all. So that really feels like a key component in this sort of changing your direction. And then other advice I'd give is, I mean, if you're trying to be like self-employed and creating something like a business for yourself, like you're doing, your healings or being an artist or whatever it is, you need like structure and discipline. I find that it's like no one wants to hear that, but it's so important because if you're working a job and you're working for someone else, you have all of that given to you. Someone tells you when to work and how to work and what to do. But in the absence of that, you need to be able to generate that for yourself. So, you know, coming at it from a spiritual perspective, which is all spiritual, like learning who you are and what you want to do is such a spiritual experience, whether you're not into spirituality or whatever. And yeah, having a practice like meditation that obviously teaches us discipline and consistency, or something else, like even if it's just having the self-drive to go out and exercise every day or whatever it is, having the ability to find discipline and consistency in yourself means that you're much more likely to succeed and persevere as a sovereign creative being creating whatever business it is. So
Mhm.
you need to give yourself everything that a boss would give you, timetable, structure, goals to work towards. Otherwise, you're just like a floating being, just kind of aimlessly like, I want to make some art. I don't know where to go. Yeah, I made a reel on TikTok recently about this 3 tips, and I've just said 2 of them. I can't remember what the other one is. Oh yeah, the other one, other one would be like let go of things that you've been told about career like throughout your life, because I mean,
Oh,
it's anything, especially again from the spiritual perspective of like letting go of what the physical world has sort of laid on top of you, because the truth of what you're meant to be doing is inside of you, and no one can tell you what it is. No one can tell you what to do. And yeah, for me, very much like letting go of things people have told me about what I should be doing, or even how I should get to where I want to be. Just try and let it go so you can kind of start again and find a bit of clarity. Otherwise, you might, if you're trying to leave a career that you don't like anymore, whatever, you might end up sort of recreating situations, manifesting similar situations because you're operating from a similar kind of place of conditioning.
mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Great advice. Thank you. I wish I'd even known all those just in May last year, especially the third for me. Um, and yeah, I remember just before I left my corporate job, my some like friends and family said to me, "Is there any money in that stuff?" Like, and I was like, "Well, I think there is. I think other people do." And it's such a it's such a funny reaction because um it's almost like we and I go through similar journey with my kids is except it's different this time. I'm saying to them, as you're getting ready to leave school, like what brings you the most joy, not what's going to earn you the most money. Because as I found, you can be very well off and unhappy, and actually the two are not really connected. Um, and uh, and I also love that you talked about the patterns. I one of the things that was holding me back from leaving my corporate job was awareness that I had this pattern of when I feel in lack and lack of self-worth, I become very like hyper productive to overcompensate, like work more hours, you know, do more things and keep busy. Um, and so I had to really let go of that and say, it's okay. Like if anything, you can work less hours and create more, like put a lot more energy into the things you do create. And I didn't just leave to earn money. I left to, have a much better work-life balance and to do the things I want to with my family and go camping and exploring every weekend and all the magical things. I want to do that too. Um, and yeah, I think that's wonderful advice to really start to release those programs. I I just caught myself a couple of weeks ago saying to my daughter, she said, "Oh, let's go for a lunchtime walk." She was back from university, and I said, "Oh, I have my weekly report to do." And she looked at me like, "To who? Like, who's your boss?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm my boss. I mean my weekly newsletter to my customers. That's what I do. I send." And she said, "Does it need to be done at that time?" It's like, no, not really. They wouldn't even care if it was like if we even skipped a week, it wouldn't matter. Um, so and so we went for a longer walk. It's like, yeah, just let go of these things. Um, I think that's wonderful advice. Um, and it's that joy, right? When when you're doing it, like I can just imagine as uh you're living in a castle and you've got this candle lit room and you're busy creating in your moment of joy. You're like, yeah, it's quite hard to see that job application, online on a job website going, oh yeah, this is your job description. Perfect. Yeah, I'll go for that one, please. Just a few more candles. And like these jobs don't exist for a reason, right? Because they're so much of the joy is in the creation and exploration of our lives. Um, and I was going to ask, like, to the some of the harder parts, like, do you ever experience, like I've mentioned, my journey of lack? Do you ever experience any of those emotions where you feel like you have to start creating more to somehow earn more money at any time?
I mean, definitely, I think generally so many of us struggle with the whole money thing. And I really have only had my business fully, a fully fledged business for the past maybe um, 13 months. I
Mhm.
basically last, is it 2023, in about November time, I decided to just knuckle down and learn about social media and how, because Instagram actually, that's the main platform I use, is geared towards um, being used for businesses. And I
Mhm.
thought, right, I I want to figure out how to make this work. So learn how to use reels properly and all this kind of thing. So only about since like December 2023, I've really had like a following and a real like actual business. So in that perspective, my business is actually quite young. So I'm still, trying to keep the foundation solid. So I'm, yeah, making sure that I'm still being consistent and putting much effort into it. And in terms of money, I mean, I definitely have a lot less worry now because even in just the past year, I've had an amazing day, just blown up. It's just been incredible. Like I've got repeat customers and I've got this huge client base with quite a fair like following on Instagram. And I mean, there are months where I don't do as well. And that just, I'm just like, well, I'll just make more, I'll just make more because I think I do have a little bit of this mindset of like lack from my own upbringing. But
Mhm.
if I actually look at the facts and the statistics, I basically sell everything I make. Like 85% of what goes on my website gets sold. I'm like, well, I can't like convince myself I'm not gonna sell this because the things I used to struggle with is like, oh, if I make this, is anyone going to buy it? Is there any point?
Mhm.
And actually, what's actually happened is there's always a point, and someone will always love it.
Mhm.
So I think I'm sort of coming to. I definitely feel in myself, like in my nervous system, in terms of like being able to sustain myself with money. I feel very balanced and calm at the moment. I had a really good December. In December alone, I made more with my business than I ever have working a job. Only a little bit more. But I was just like, wow, this is amazing. I don't
Yeah.
have anything to worry about. But it's like it's ebbs and flows, like I'm not gonna just like I've obviously relaxed a lot more in January because of that, but it doesn't mean I'm just gonna stop trying. Like I'm just all about the consistency and trying to not let those like negative mindsets take over because as soon as you start believing those beliefs around lack, they start happening. So you
Yeah.
just got to be like, all right, I see you, but you're not taking the driver's seat right now.
Absolutely. And yeah, congratulations on your growth. It's just phenomenal to hear in every dimension, right? It's and it's so important to I feel like it's like having that relationship with the dark side, the shadow of you going with me when I remember some of my what was it September no October was like I started my business in end of May, like 31st of May. Things kept going up with my income, and then I had this big dip. And I one technique I found for when you're in lack is to do the opposite, right? Is to so I invested in a new microphone, and I bought um, like a little interface for my computer, and I didn't know why exactly I was doing it, other than it felt like I needed to prepare myself for something that was coming, and and then what did come was the opportunity, even whilst my house was being renovated, and I had to start working in the camper van for 4 weeks. I'd taken that mic and my little interface and my laptop, and I went on a really big YouTube channel, and then everything took off really fast, and then I got booked out for months on end. And it's like, oh, that could have
Amazing.
gone, yeah, that could have gone totally the opposite way. I could have just gone, don't spend anything, John, stop, stop breathing. Um, and I now whenever I feel like that, I'll do things like book someone else in. Maybe I'll get like a massage or a reading or donate or buy something. And it's just one way of spending less time in that feeling of lack and saying, actually, I'm not in lack, especially, when I think over the year, it's just, it's, I don't know why I do this as well. I still do this. But when you work a salaried job, you're very used to the paycheck at the end of the month. And And in your mind, you think, well, that means I get paid per hour, per day, per week. It's not actually quite true. Like the business doesn't really make money from you every single day. And the business itself goes up and down in the profit it makes from you as a worker in that business. And yet I do see on my website when the orders come in and and some days there's none and then some days there's like loads. And it's funny going through that roller coaster. But what I do also like is that when there's a dip in income, arguably it should be a time for also making the most of the time. Like no one's paying you, like you're free. Like go spend time on your energy. Go and spend time in nature and just clear your energy and raise your vibrations and stay out of those dark moments because you'll attract in a lot more happiness and joy.
Yeah, definitely. It's such an invitation not having the consistent like paycheck. It's like an invitation to trust and it's like the freedom is so beautiful. It's like this is how we're meant to be living freely and self-responsibly and just having that time to reflect. And it's so organic. Like some days you'll get some orders or some days you won't. And it's just this kind of flow. And it's like, okay, well, I trust that one will come in and just this deeper like letting go, trust. Like it's such a beautiful journey and it's so much more fun. Like I'd rather be making a little bit of money and being really happy and free than having to go to a job and feeling miserable and like my life force is being sucked out of me. And it's such a I
Mhm.
find the business is such like a mirror for our own journeys. It's like
Yeah.
the level of risk and trust that you can take in yourself, it gets mirrored in the business. And it's almost like this relationship with this like it's like you are the business and it just mirrors where you're at. And I think it's so beautiful.
I think that's a lovely way of describing it. I do that whenever I feel like complaining about my work. I go and I literally go and stand in front of the mirror, and I'm like, John, like which version of me like set up today in the calendar? It's like too much, or it's like, or actually, we need Wednesdays off for camping and weekends, and I'll just stand there and have that chat with myself. And yeah, I love that. We are absolutely our businesses. Um, and I have one more question, which is about have you thought about teaching other people how to create with your craft?
Yeah, I get this question a lot as well. I did some face-to-face like workshops back in when I was still working a normal job. It was for this kind of art charity, and they do workshops. And I did some workshops for a few months, like once a week, I think. And that was really fun. And I have actually started a Patreon several months ago now. I think almost a year ago, I started a Patreon and I started filming tutorials. But then I found that I stopped having time to make them. I
Mhm.
realized recently I have the time to do that, so I need to just give myself a nudge and do that again. And I've lots of people have said that they'd love to do like in-person or online workshops. Someone messaged me recently and said I would take time off of work if you made it, an online workshop. I would do anything to be there, which is so nice. So um, yeah, I really love teaching people. I think at the moment I'm still like trying to make sure that I'm making enough products every month and yeah, trying to find that balance to then also pursue another thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm hoping I'm hoping I'll make that happen at some point.
I'm sure if you find enough joy in it, you'll make it happen, whatever you choose. Um,
Yeah, and I think that was the problem with Patreon is that it takes so much time to edit a video,
oh
just like
yeah.
splicing all these things together and doing the voiceover. You probably know it's such a headache, and I was just like, I don't really enjoy this, but I do enjoy giving people knowledge.
Mhm.
So I think there's something there, and how can I do this in a way that is enjoyable for me?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I said at the start, but I never edit. I don't edit anything. Um, so in
Okay.
fact, literally, I did a video this morning. Uh, I did like a monthly reflections video, and you just see me like pressing the camera like this, like and play, "Hello, everyone," and that's like that's the previous versions we would have chopped that off. Like, you can't have that. It's like now I'm like, I look at my phone, I'm like, do I really want to spend 30 minutes editing the video, checking the sound quality. It's like if it's not that good, I'll just make sure I change my setup so that it sounds better next time. But I'll just
Mhm.
create it and leave. And yeah, I love live streams for that as well. Is just going live and you kind of don't need to do anything. Just be there and be present. Or I have a membership group and we do Zoom sessions twice a month. And I love that we were doing healings last night, and one of the members, we could do healings for their dog, and they asked their dog for permission, and we could see their dog, and we're like, oh, that's so good. The dog's just gorgeous, and had a skin condition that we're helping with, and we're just like, this is so joyous to me. I love this so much. I don't have to edit anything. I just need to hit the Zoom button to join with people, and then just go for as long as it feels right. But yeah, that's fabulous. I'm excited that you're that at least you find some joy in teaching others, and maybe you'll go back to it. Um, and how
Mhm.
can people get in touch with you for your work? What's the best place? Where's the best place to find you?
Well, I use Instagram primarily. And my Instagram is at Elvin underscore adornments. And that's ELVEN underscore adornments. And my name isn't Elvin. I think a lot of people message me and say, hey, hi, Elvin. I'm like, no. It's inspired by like Middle Earth, like Lord of the Rings, because my idea with at the beginning was like I love fantasy genres. I wanted to make something fit for an elfin queen. So that was where the name came about. Yeah, so that my Instagram page is the best place to contact me.
Fantastic. Fabulous. And before I let you go, do you have any advice for anyone who is following their dreams, or if they're um, following your line of work and that's their dream? Do you have any advice for them as they continue on their journey?
Anyone that wants to rap as their dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just just keep experimenting and don't be hard on yourself when something goes wrong. I think that's like the biggest key for me was when there's something went wrong, I'd just be like, oh, okay, well, I'll just try it differently. And being really self-forgiving as an artist and just keep trying and keep finding the joy in experimenting and just not being so self-critical and just having as much fun as possible because as a creative, we're so harsh on ourselves, like this isn't perfect, but someone will love it, and just trusting that it's all unfolding and just having fun. Having fun. Yeah.
Yes. I love that. Yeah, like it's self-doubt's the biggest killer of dreams, right? And I'm the same with songs. Like you might be able to tell by how many I put out, that I just write them every day, and I release a song every day. And if I didn't like it, or if I find myself being self-critical about it, I just say to myself, well, I'll just make the next one better. And I just keep going because I love it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's a great approach. Well, thank you.
Yeah. The mindset.
Um, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh,
But yeah,
s- sorry, I didn't hear you. I'm interrupting you.
I was just going to say thank you so much for coming along on my channel. It was so lovely to share you with the world, and yeah, I look forward to seeing more creations from you and following your journey. And yeah, I do have some plans to head down maybe during the summer uh, down down into England. I'm not that far from England, but quite far from Glastonbury. But yeah, please keep up your incredible work, and look forward to maybe seeing you again sometime. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, John. Been a pleasure.
Thank you. Take care.